So Fantastic Four came out last weekend, and I have mixed thoughts about it. I have a few good, bad, and neutral things to say about the film. Just a warning, I am going to talk about spoilers in this review, so if you do not want to hear spoilers, go ahead and click off the video. However, if you are looking for a superhero movie to watch, this or Superman, and you only want to watch one, I strongly suggest Superman over this movie. I feel like it's way more action-packed, it's a lot more coherent of a story, and I feel like it just feels like a better movie. So if you're looking for one superhero movie to watch this summer, Superman is definitely the movie I would choose. Now, on to spoilers. We'll start with the good, and the first good thing this movie did was Galactus. His design looked great, his voice I feel like was pretty decent, and just overall they finally got Galactus right in a live action form, at least with how he looks. He's not a stupid cloud, he actually is like the size he's supposed to be, and he has his accurate costume. I think he looked great. The story of Galactus and how he's utilized will definitely be said later on in this video. It is not in this section. The visuals in this movie were also pretty good. I enjoyed the visuals. They looked really good. It didn't look cheap like some other Marvel projects recently. They looked polished. Mr. Fantastic powers, I think, looked as good as they could without looking too ridiculous. I feel like it is still a little rough in some areas, but I think they did the best they could. And then Johnny looked really good. The Thing looked really good. Sue's powers looked good. The movie is very visually appealing, so I will give it that. Aside from Mr. Fantastic, which I'll get into later, I feel like the cast was pretty solid in this movie. I enjoyed Ben Grimm, I actually enjoyed Johnny, and I enjoyed Sue. And the actors that play them, I feel like did a good job in their roles. Reed, I'll talk about later. I have a few quirks I have with him. And I liked how strong of a family element that was in this movie, although it felt a little bit weaker than something like Guardians. But it was still there, it was still pretty strong, so I'll give them credit for that. I also like how smart they made these characters. Johnny isn't just some bro, he's actually intelligent. You could see why he's an astronaut and how he's qualified. He deciphers an entire language, and I feel like at points he's even smarter than Reed in this movie, which is a little bit weird that's how I feel, but that's just after the first watch, that's how I see it, that Johnny sometimes is smarter than Reed in this movie specifically. So that was just something interesting I picked up on. Speaking of Reed Richards, we'll now go into neutrals. Reed, Pedro, I don't know how I feel about this casting. Ever since it was announced, I feel like they just cast him because he was a big name at the time. You could still hear the Mandalorian in his voice, so it's pretty distracting. He tries to mask it, but it's still there. You could still hear it. He talks in this really quiet tone the whole time, and he just doesn't feel like Reed Richards. He feels like if Reed Richards was 20 years younger or something like that. He doesn't feel like this old, mature Reed Richards, and he should definitely feel more arrogant as well, and more calculated and brutal in a sense. At least that's always been my perception of Reed Richards. Not like this more quiet, crowd-pleasing guy. Maybe crowd-pleasing isn't the right word to describe this Reed Richards, but I feel like Reed should be a character that's calculated and brutal, and he's intelligent enough to know the smart decision, to know the right decision, and the right decision requires sacrifice. It requires logic. In an emotional state, logic doesn't always apply. Like with them not wanting to give up Franklin, but if you give up Franklin for the rest of the Earth, then it's one life for the billions of other people. Reed should have stood his ground and been like, this is one life for the billions of other lives, and if Galactus comes and we fail, then everybody dies instead of just a singular life dies. And he should have stood his ground and then maybe come up with another solution, not just be trying to mask it away no, this isn't what I was thinking. He should have just stood his ground right there and been an asshole, because ultimately Reed Richards is an asshole. That's just how his character is, and I feel like it's what makes him interesting at point. Where this movie takes place is also where I kind of have a problem with it. I could see why they don't want in the mainline MCU at this point, but they could have fit it in somewhere. They could have worked an alternate universe if the ending was different, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, the bad. And I feel like the worst part of this movie was the ending. But I'm going to save that for the last part. This movie drags. There are some points in this movie where it feels like it should have ended 10 minutes ago, and it just keeps going, and it feels really slow, and it almost makes you lose interest in a way. Galactus as the villain, it could have worked, but I feel like they just don't know how to use Galactus right. And in that sense, there's so many other villains in the Fantastic Four's category that they could have at least fought during the rest of the movie and not have Galactus been the focus of the entire movie. I wish instead of getting a 5-minute montage of them actually using their powers to fight normal sized villains, Like, this was actually, like, the first third of the movie was them actually taking on normal villains. And, you know, we see them, like, get their ass kicked and work better together as a team. Because we do not see their powers utilized against other people that much. Like, the Thing, I wish we would have saw him, like, throwing people around. I wish we would have saw Johnny, like, lighting people up. Reed just knocking everybody out. But, like, we don't see that. We only see the battle with Galactus and them being on damage control for the most part. I mean, what does the Thing do? He runs through a building. That's like all he does during the entire movie, and he gets thrown at Galactus. That is like all he does. He doesn't fight anybody. We don't see him like knocking people out. It's just very boring. Maybe unentertaining is a better word than boring. And ultimately, how I wish this movie would have ended, how I thought it would have ended, was with this universe getting devoured by Galactus. Or not universe, but this Earth getting devoured by Galactus. Instead, he gets defeated the same way we defeat him in a Fortnite. He just gets thrown into a portal. He's intelligent. He has no intelligence. Like, he's just like, and just gets knocked into the portal. And it's very disappointing and anticlimactic. They had a chance setting this movie in a different Earth to, like, get rid of the Earth, to actually have consequences, and for the heroes to actually lose, because heroes win way too much. We need the villains to win more, and this would have been a perfect opportunity to show that Reed was wrong. His plan didn't work this time. His nonsensical pulling a plan out of his ass didn't actually work this time, and that would have made his character so much more interesting throughout the rest of the movies that he's going to be in. But instead, we get the lame ending of Galactus getting thrown into a portal, and the good guys win again for the 50th time in the MCU. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of this movie. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? I feel like overall it was alright. It wasn't the most offensive MCU movie, especially as of recently. But let me know what you guys think down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.